But after a while, I realized that all of a sudden here we have a solution to a class of problems that used to be really, really hard, and I was reasoning over large amounts of texts of any kind of shape or form.
Unstructured, yeah.
Exactly. And now, all of a sudden, we have this golden bullet that can be applied to almost everything, but it really excels at this issue that we used to have.
Hey there, welcome to Betatalks, the podcast. I'm Rick.
And I am Oscar.
And today we are joined by Andreas Wänqvist, who is an AI architect at Voyado, an Aurelia core team member, and a Microsoft MVP. Welcome.
Welcome.
Thank you, guys. It's an honor to be here.
It's so great to have you. I mean, even looking at just that introduction, so you're both an AI architect, you are an Aurelia core team member, and a Microsoft MVP. I think that's enough content for the rest of the episode. So maybe we'll start relatively easy off with your role as an AI architect at Voyado. So what is it that your company does? And then what does a day-to-day for you look like?
Oh, gee. Well, to begin, Voyado, our company, is super nice company that's into we do customer club software. I think you call it CXP, customer experience program, loyalty program, stuff like that, mostly for retailers. Started out real small here in Sweden, a town nearby where I live. Quite a success story. It's I think I was number 80 something starting out. We're over 350 people. We're present in 7-8 countries something, I think. So it's really fun. It's been a nice journey. Oh, we also have a super cool, super fast in-memory database for products. That's, among others, powering HMs. You know, that small clothes store. It's powering their e-shop. All the images and product information there. It's our system.
And that's that product is yours, like the technical product is. Okay.
My focus is on the other product though, the CXP. We call it Engage. So where our customers, the retailers, they manage their customer clubs, they do create emails to do send-outs, manage their loyalty program, stuff like that.
That's actually a pretty interesting field, because I happen to work with a company, or together with a company that does something similar. Oh. Do you also do this cross-media, as in, do you also send out like physical stuff? Or is it all digital?
We have a module for, I think we call it just postal, which is super old school. But the only thing that does is just helps you print labels if you want to put them on envelopes, as far as I know. So not really. Our main focus is email communication and text messages. Then in the future now we're seeing this year, maybe next, other media is starting to become more relevant, especially as we're moving abroad. I'd say some of these communication apps that we use are not that regularly used in the Nordics. I don't know if I should mention all those apps, but you know which ones they are. We're seeing a lot more use for it down in Benelux countries, Germany, UK. So we probably need to implement that now as well. It's going to be fun.
Would that be something, is that cultural? Is it just not supported as much in the Nordics? Do you have an idea?
I'm guessing it's just cultural. I mean, we're really open to new IT agnostic, and quite open to new things in the Nordics. But You know, it is. You have a friend that uses an app and you have to install it, and all of a sudden then the entire country has it, and they tend to go over to one platform. And then we see these behaviors, I think, all over the world to certain degrees. So just cultural, local phenomena, I think.
Okay. And then what's your role within the company? Because yes, you are the AI architect, but what does that actually mean? What is it that you actually do? Because
I was hoping you could tell me.
Something with AI, probably.
Yeah. So, well, we're. I was about to say we're living the dream. In some cases, we're living the nightmare. I used to be one of our web architects before, but that was a hassle. You know, .NET has started releasing every second year now. I was into JavaScript framework, so we're talking every 2 months. And now I moved up to AI, which means release every 2 days. Things are moving super duper fast. So I felt we needed one role to try to, like the Wandering, gather them all and keep everything in check, more or less. Also, when things are moving so fast, the teams and also God knows the architect team could really make do with some clear steering and thinking about which direction should we move, or what kind of tech should we focus on, and all of the other things. Where in the product, how in the product, what in the product, should it even be in the product? Do we need it? So there's 1,001 questions that all needed answering, and I felt I needed to get focus time to get my head around what is AI right now, what does it mean for us today, what is our product going to look like in 2 years, 5 years? Is there such a thing as a web UI existing in 5 years? Will we click buttons on the web anymore? I don't know. So yeah, I'm thinking mostly.
so now it's even more unclear what will be happening in the future, because you just mentioned a couple of potential scenarios that probably not everybody that's listening has been thinking about. But that is something that we need to take into consideration, right? Because the world, and especially our industry, is moving at such a rapid pace that it's almost impossible to envision what will happen in 2 or 5 or 6 years.
Yes, indeed. See, I was actually one of the first batch. As I work in open source, I got an early invite to start playing around with GitHub Copilot. Well, that was, it feels like yesterday, but I think it was during the pandemic, so we're talking 2019, 20-something, the shift. And we just rolled into 25, but it's just a few years ago. And I tried it out. I gave it a fair chance for 3 days until I was so annoyed and bothered with it, because it gave me so many bad results all the time, and it was slow and it was not dependable. You couldn't really count on it to actually fill in the blanks every time, right? Because back then there was no chat, there were no edits, it was just a gray ghost text, right? So sometimes you sat and waited for it, and you stared at the screen and nothing. It's just After 3 days, I deinstalled it. Thought nothing more of it. Tried testing it, I think, just about a year ago. I started again. I paid for it myself to get, I think we call it the Pro subscription, to try it out. I was like amazed how far it's gotten. All that crappy JavaScript code it gave me, never understood I was coding in TypeScript. Well, that's no problem anymore. And also tried it out with C#, and after a while I'm like, I do love Visual Studio. I think my backstory is I'm server side. Really see myself as cloud nowadays. Back then there was physical servers guys like backend code. That was my forte. Always had Visual Studio open. Now I find myself editing my C# code in Visual Studio Code because Copilot is better there. The latest like experiments is available in Visual Studio Code before it comes to Visual Studio. And I find myself thinking, wow, this is really changing how I'm working. And I've been coding for some 30 years.
You just talked about GitHub Copilot. And in the early days, you had to explicitly go there. You had to explicitly ask it something. You had to do a lot of things to get to what you stated, I think correctly, as not too great results.
Yeah.
Now it's just inherently part of your IDE. It's just there. And if you start typing, then it says, hey, maybe this is something you can use. And the results are also a lot better than they were
I remember
initially.
Like started 2 years ago with that. And for me, it was like the thing was fighting my normal compiler.
Yeah.
It was suggesting things that wouldn't compile. It was also like, well, now I actually wasn't the normal hint because I'm just looking for the method on it and not something you just generated for me. And I still struggle sometimes that I just complete my sentences while I was pretty sure what I was about to type in something else. But
and then you lost what you wanted to type, right?
But it's getting there. Like it's also like it nested a bit more with the keystrokes and the shortcuts, and so it's and I think we also are more used to it.
Yeah, true. So I didn't prepare or I didn't warn Oscar beforehand because the reason I know or I came into contact with Andreas is the fact that he too spoke at Static Web App Day.
Oh yeah.
And I've been an advocate of static web apps for like ever since its initial introduction. But you did a very interesting talk, but it was more around Data Builder, which is available through Azure Static Web Apps.
Yep.
Could you maybe really shortly talk us through what's happening there? Because I'll give you a little bit of backstory why I'm asking. We've seen more and more, and we've discussed more and more, that abstractions in software development seem to grow exponentially, which also means that we can focus way more on our actual added business value as developers. I think Data Builder, in some instances, is a perfect example of how an abstraction can take away a lot of work for a developer.
Yes, indeed. It's actually not my forte, so I hope I don't say anything that's wrong. But I totally agree. It's we've come a long way, right? So Data Builder, Data API Builder is you give it just your schema, basically. If you're running a what's the name?
Relational database.
No, the other one. Non-relational. If you want to publish the results as a not a REST API but
GraphQL.
Yes, thank you.
No.
Yes.
So you specify if you have a relational database, just give it connection string. Mm-hmm. So this is my database. This is the entities I want you to understand, and it can go off and check those for you. And then it just builds all the API endpoints you need, CRUD endpoints. And you can, of course, specify if you want some of them to be more secure than the other ones. So, I mean, that's a whole layer or two of code that just disappears.
And that's so impressive. And I think that's actually, again, this is topics that we've touched upon earlier. Yeah. But I also think that that's, for a large part, the new services that will be introduced in cloud platforms like Azure will be either services like this or combinations of services that together have extra added value on top of you combining the services yourself.
Yeah.
Do you think that something like this is also true in the AI space?
I think so. I've been theorizing about we're going to see something more, because we as a industry, we've been talking about this for a very long time, but it has rarely come to good fruition where we actually want just a declarative way. I will define a schema and give it to something, and two or more things will start talking, and just everything should work. There's a few good examples, I think, through history where we actually made that work. But I do think that something like that will show up for the AI space as well. But right now, there's a lot of very competitive companies / organizations out there that's trying to claim their stakes, make impressions, peddle their products, influence people with money.
In order to get some investments, indeed.
Exactly. So right now, I think we're a bit too early in the hype cycle to see loads of collaboration and things that could move us forward as a community, unfortunately. But I do truly hope we'll get there sooner than later.
It's funny you mentioned the hype cycle. Of course, it's there, but where we at it at this moment is again unclear to me, because I thought we were in that solution already, but I feel that we're going multiple rounds on this one.
Yeah,
more than ever.
I think we had a couple of weeks where we actually thought that we had seen everything there was to be seen, and we were heading into the slope. The solution was in sight, and then bam, couple of new releases just blew the pants out of people.
Again. Yeah,
full hype. Trump's inauguration, we should not speak more about that, but day after, Sam Altman stands there in the White House saying, we are going to raise 500 billion for data centers for OpenAI, and what's his name, Masushita Son for SoftBank, and Larry Ellison of all people. I mean, yeah, we're back. We're back.
Yeah. It seems like.
And then we got DeepSeek.
Yeah.
Yeah, it seems like every innovation starts the hype cycle anew, right? Or at least the hype part of the cycle. So just like you said, it feels a bit like things are settling down, and now we say, there we go again.
And it's so hard to judge how, let's say, normal people experience this, because it's all AI. But like, I'm speaking to people that never even tried to do a prompt or whatever, and that is so far from our work.
Yeah.
It's like, but this is here, it's everywhere, and they just hear, there's AI, and AI is of course a horrible marketing term. In the end, that doesn't say what it actually does. It's just everything that's doesn't really have a purpose yet. It's a hard business at the moment, and there are so many cool things you could build, but it's almost like you don't feel you have the time to actually start something, because halfway the build, like the next thing is there and it's obsolete, or I don't know if it's going to be as good as the example will be, because the demo is always simple. And you build something and it's apparently normal engineering after that. Like in the end, you're throwing a prompt to an API, like the rest goes by itself. And then we have all the normal problems. Well, by doing that, like you passed 4 or 5 different beta versions of that SDK. And and I love fast going technology. And indeed, I even loved all the crazy over-engineered JavaScript frameworks, but this is madness.
Starting out with it, I was kind of miffed that we as developers, we expect really tangible results that are foreseeable. We want structure. We want to be on point. We expect the same output from the same input, etc. idempotency is the best thing we know,
we like
right?
Testability.
Stability. And then all of a sudden comes LLMs and everything is thrown out the window, and I didn't like it at all at first. And then listening in on all the hype, trying to follow that. But after a while, I realized that all of a sudden here we have a solution to a class of problems that used to be really, really hard. And I was reasoning over large amounts of texts of any kind of shape or form.
Unstructured, yeah.
Exactly. And now all of a sudden we have this golden bullet that can be applied to almost everything, but it really excels at this issue that we used to have. And continuing to just dive wholeheartedly into uncertainty and pain and anguish. After a while, I came up on the other side, born renew, and had faith of that there is something here that we actually can turn into real good user experiences for the end users. Now, I don't think that it should be first and foremost a chat window in the face of your users, but there is something here that we can use to automate, remove, simplify flows in applications that will make things better, I think.
That's interesting that you mentioned that, because like me on this path as well, like I come to realize that we're basically finding a new UX that we're not used to it, because all the UX theory that we have is basically to overcome all the problems we introduce with forms over data, with buttons and things and fields. And now we have this fluent abstract thing that handles the logic or the not so logic for us. And how do you plug that into the workflow or the state of people? Does it indeed require a browser and some buttons, or is now after a while of being able to chat to things like with your voice and all other kinds of input, will this now be feasible? Because this thing can much better steer you into like, oh, this was the intent that you had, while I'm still at home trying to say, hey, Google, or Siri, or whatever, and making the exact sentence there. Like, we don't need those commands anymore. We don't need that structured input. So this unlocks a completely different capability. And I think we are not seeing half of the thing that it actually offers. We're just trying to indeed throw a chat window on your app and sprinkle some AI on to be part of the hype at the moment. Yeah.
And I think that's actually where you said, Andreas, that you're looking at not only how and where do we put it in our application, but do we put it in our application? And that's presumably the hardest question to answer, because if you look at use cases that customers currently come up with, if you ask, hey, what would you like AI to do? Then 9 times out of 10, or maybe even 95 times out of 100, they come up with a use case that's actually just not an AI use case. It's either search or but it's rarely true AI. How do you navigate all of the ideas and possibilities and then keep that sane, as in, but does it add value?
I have really good UX people.
That helps.
which is a blessing. And some of them also understand AI and the paradigm shift that we're seeing, which makes it really easy to get them to say that, well, this is not good user UX. This is not a good user experience.
Yeah.
And think about what can we do that is subtle, not as visible. We actually have implemented the chat, but I think it was a valid use case. It was first and foremost on the dashboard, where you see this is all your sendouts, this is how revenue has been affected. And you have loads of KPIs, and most of them are kind of hard to understand if you're not a pro at what you're doing. And now you can actually ask, tell me more about this graph. Why does it look like it does? What had the most impact on revenue from this send out? Things like that. But then I talk to a lot more developers that think that, I even envision I could ask, and with that they implicitly say, I want a chat box here.
Yeah.
And I think in many cases, not only our application but others as well, a chat box isn't what should be there. It is not good UX most of the time, because users won't know what to ask anyways, or what is good for, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I had a great experience. Well, not so much. I'm not going to throw them under the bus, but it was a SaaS provider doing a technical product, and they had some integrations because we wanted to pull the data out, throw it to some data lake. You know how it goes. But I couldn't find on their documentation exactly all the providers they supported, and I was like, okay, I'm fully in Azure. I would love to throw this thing to a storage account, like Gen 2 data lake. So I was looking for that, and it had a hint in the documentation that it might be possible. So I asked support, which I kind of assumed still was going to some tech person, for how do I hook this up to Azure storage account. It gave me a complete instruction back in seconds, and it looked awesome. And it's like, do this, go there, this. And the only thing I thought was a bit weird is that the abbreviations they used for Azure Storage Account weren't the ones we're used to. It's like, they mean Azure Storage Account for. I couldn't find the things they were referenced to because I saw S3 buckets there, I saw all kinds of things. And what happened, because I looked at the documentation, there was some slapped-on LLM there providing me support, because I also asked for a person and they said, we don't even have that. No, but the LLM just took the documentation, took the S3 storage a guide
and replaced
and completely
AWS.
Just translated it to Azure Storage Account, which was everywhere abbreviated as ASA. It's like, what? So nice. You can completely imagine that happens, and to me it's like, come on, you're a technical product. I'm fine with waiting a day for someone just reviewing my question, or that it points out, have you seen this part of the documentation? But don't make up documentation on the fly.
I mean, on the other end, if it could do that to a good extent, that would be great, right? But I mean, that's not
or
how...
actually implement it because I asked the question. That would also be fine. I won't think it's secure, but...
Yeah, but that's how that stuff works. Oscar, just a quick question. Do you know what time it is?
Is it already time for a totally random question?
Yep, it's time for a totally random question. Andreas, what's the funniest error message you've ever encountered?
Are they ever funny?
Well, sometimes they are. But
404, okay, what?
But you could also make it a funny, or an error message in a funny situation where you thought, dude, how even do you just reply this now to me?
Is it 427? I'm a teapot.
That's 418.
418.
418. That's always interesting.
But that is a funny one. That is, it's an official standard, right?
Yeah.
That's the funny part, actually. It was back in the days that they could still
You could create an RFC for web standards, right?
If you do the full RFC and you follow the rules, why not?
Yeah.
But then
Coffee pot protocol.
I'm still wondering, was it just somebody who wasn't paying attention when they said, okay, sure, let's do this? Or was it, hey, everything is according to the RFC, we need to implement this now?
Well, yeah. That's the myth a bit, right?
Yeah, I don't know. I thought it was a couple of guys had a teapot in the lab, and they were testing communications, and then decided they should answer with that. But maybe that's just old wives' tale. I don't know.
It could be the same. No, go ahead.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that the error message I still kind of miss is the old red blinking sign that said Guru Meditation. Have you seen that?
Yeah, where was that from?
It was old Amiga times when I was learning to code, programming demos, write over some system memory, and then that turned out
Yeah, there's quite a few stories about funny things and names in software, but also
I come
funny
from
error messages,
originally from the kernel panic world.
which also is quite funny, right? I don't know what you're asking for, but I'm in panicking now. So, going back to, I think you already mentioned this a little bit. You also do, let's say, you do something with open source, but not just something. You're an Aurelia core team member, or at least you used to be. For those not aware, could you maybe shed a light on what Aurelia is and then what it meant for you being a core team member for that product?
Yeah, sure. Long time ago, I did not like web or JavaScript. Go figure. Then I got thrown in, or maybe under the bus, from my boss. Then we were rebuilding a big product, and he said, "Wänqvist, you're now head of the web app." I was like, "What? I don't know any web." "Yeah, but you're the most senior. Go figure this out," he said. And then in the process, we had to we made the discovery to decide what we were betting on. So we looked at Angular at the time, and React was hardly out, I think. We looked at...
Then maybe Knockout was there as well, right?
A Knockout was definitely there.
Then it's Angular JS time, like 2014.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, exactly. It was that shift. Aurelia 1 had came out. It was an early beta.
Okay.
And some other...
Well, before Aurelia, you had Durandal. I worked with that for...
Yeah, exactly. But we didn't evaluate that. I was thinking of Google had a web components project out that we looked into as well. Mm-hmm. That was cool, but really, really super slow. And they've discarded that one now. Sorry. I keep forgetting names. However, that was all fine and cool. Aurelia 1, super like that. That was an early beta, so we decided we don't know where this is going to end up, so we can't bet on it. But I continued playing with it at home during my spare time. Kind of fell in love with it, and then started writing blog posts, stuff like that. And then when we finished that product, I saw an ad for a company that was actually sitting just on the floor below me. I kind of they're building something new. Maybe I should take the chance. So I went and spoke to them and I said that I can build this product for you if I get to choose the frameworks. And they allowed me to do that. So I got to play with Aurelia full time, which was really cool. Super enjoyed that. Started building a large product all by myself, just coding day in, day out. That company got acquired by Microsoft. And then by that time, Rob Eisenberg actually created Aurelia, and Randall and all those worked at Microsoft. So we got connected, and I had lots of ideas what we could do. And I started... No, I had already started, I think, or did start Aurelia weekly newsletter on the site where people could enter submissions for that and handle that. And also started speaking at conferences about Aurelia. So what I've done as a core team member, and what I still do, is talk about it passionately and teach people and build demos and things like that. So it's been great from despising JavaScript to loving web and talking about web everywhere.
But yeah, it was indeed a changing moment, I think, because a lot happened. Like Angular JS was successful. I remember, and I remember Durandal as well.
Yeah.
Before, like 4 years before that, we were doing spas in different kind of stacks. Even up until, let's not speak about Silverlight.
Ow.
Yeah, and I did Flex, right? From like Flash, but
Action script.
ActionScript 3 was awesome. Like it's basically still what we're now doing in JavaScript. It wasn't that different. I did that a long time, but I got at a client, and there we were choosing. It's like, were we doing Durandal, doing AngularJS, and that was the moment that AngularJS was still the most stable of everything. And Durandal was really small, and it was also Rob Eisenberg's, I think. And then we had the discussion because they just did the demo of Angular 2, the team at Google, which completely was never gonna be compatible with AngularJS.
Nope.
It's the rug pull of a lifetime, wasn't it?
That was very interesting.
Somehow Google tends to do those things.
Yeah, they sync everything all the time. Yeah, but like Rob Eisenberg went to that team, right? He started Angular 2 route at some point. Just got into a clash into what it's supposed to be. Moved away again, picked up Aurelia and started building it out. Yeah. Because before that was, I think, just a beta.
So he was building. He was building Aurelia before that, but then the Google team contacted him, and he went in as a contractor. So he never joined Google. He was there as a contractor, but he and the Angular team clearly have different visions about what developer experience should be. I don't know if you've tried out Aurelia, but we're extremely focused on everything just works, right? You shouldn't have to declare anything.
It's really convention-based.
Yeah, super convention-based, which makes it really, really, really easy to get into. But Angular was the other way, and Rob is extremely concerned about trying to follow web standards as long as possible. And did that as well. And Angular, one word, banana hammock, right? No. So they kind of, I wouldn't say they clashed, but they just didn't have the same vision about what web development should look like. So since he was just a contractor, he decided after a while that I'd better focus on Aurelia. I think that'll be better for all. And did that for a while, and then started working for Microsoft. Why after that?
Yeah, that's. I think it's really good that it's there because it gave Angular, I think, a hard time on some of the projects where people had to select a front end.
You always need to have a good selection, and you need to. Like that world needs to settle, and
the like, competition helps in creating better possibilities, right?
Yeah, and I think we have React, of course, which is huge, but like the frameworks went through so much evolution from a stack of tools, basically, like a whole tribe of tools to be able to build something. To they all end up now to something very simple, where you get a hello world in 5 minutes together. They have basically their own CLI tool. There's not too much to pick from anymore. But on the other hand, like they ended up all in kind of the same place. So that's also interesting.
So one thing that really stands out to me is the fact you just mentioned CLI tool. The ecosystem of developers has changed dramatically as well. And then maybe for me, or at least for my vision, even more so because I used to be .NET, so everything in Visual Studio, but now .NET is also on command line, and .NET is in Visual Studio Code, and it's
now you need a keyboard.
Yeah, now it's and I really love that, but also that ties in a lot better with, like you said, tools that have their own command line.
And it's weird. It's how we started, right? Like everything was a command line. Everything was a tool with some commands, and it generated something, and at some point, we just needed to build a GUI to build some other GUI, which was hard to automate. Let's say that. I think the whole DevOps movement and infrastructure as code and like event or like a state that you want is like giving us more describery options, and then the tools came back.
Yeah, probably. So we've come full circle, is what you want to say.
Yeah. So I'm still waiting for AI that's just the CLI.
Yeah,
You can actually, but
that's where we're heading if we're going to, run every program by a chat box. But CLIs are really good because commands are crisp and defined, whereas chatbot context is kind of hazy and fluent. So I don't know. I keep saying the same thing to developers. Like, why do you want to force our users to interact with the product through a CLI?
Mm-hmm.
That is for developers, not for end users, I think.
Yeah, true.
So.
With that, is there anything that you would like to get back to, or are there things that you would like to add to what we've already discussed today?
Oof. So much to say. I think the future looks really bright. I'm super looking forward to where we're ending up with AI. It's going to be very exciting to see next year, next couple of years. This year, I can't even see the end of the year and imagine where we are at. We've seen so many big breakthroughs in just last couple of weeks. I mean, O3 smashing tests we thought wouldn't be touchable this year. And we see all these new also coding features coming out. GitHub Copilot releasing their first agent just yesterday, I think, and Workspace. Have you guys tried Workspace?
I haven't yet.
Not yet. I've seen a talk here in the Netherlands by, I think it was Willem Mijns.
Do it.
Yeah? You can see the enthusiasm shooting out there.
Yeah, but this is what we... something I missed that I think we wanted was not just chatting and asking about our code, but the fact that I can now trust it as much as to say, change my file. And now with Copilot edits, you have the possibility to say, create this file and this service and change something here and there and add a couple of files to the context and will multi-file edit. Not a complete story for you, but really, really good if you just detail what it's going to do. With Workspace, we're seeing take this from a GitHub issue to fully implemented in code all over your solution, services, repositories, APIs, everything. I think it's kind of cool. I didn't dream of that when I was playing around with my old Amiga 30 years ago.
You know the term nerd sniping, right?
Yeah.
So now you've just made at least two people spend half of their Friday evening diving into GitHub Workspaces.